Hi, this is Alex, and if you love music, well, you've come to the right place because we're all about albums. I'm sure many of you out there have had this experience. You pull out your favorite album, you sit back and listen, and boy, it sounds great. And then the next night, you put on the same album or another similar album, and what happens? It sounds not so good. So what happened? It's not like the music has changed, or your stereo system's different, or you're using different set of ears. Obviously, everything is the same. So what can be some of the reasons or causes for this change? Is it you? Is it your stereo system? Or is it some other factor? Well, to all of these I say yes. It can be these and possibly other factors as well contributing to your perceived change in the sound quality. I know some of you out there are saying, come on, what's going on here? It's all in your head. I mean, the stereo system is the same, your music that you selected is the same, so it must be you. And to that I say, yes and no. So let's delve into this a little deeper. As you know, music can be tied to previous memories and events. And sometimes these events can be quite wonderful and pleasurable. Other times, these events can be less so and bring back some bad memories. Also, it may be that you are not quite as receptive to the music that day, and therefore the music doesn't sound quite so euphonic. And if your favorite album is lively and your mood is more melancholy, it may not sound so good that day. So maybe being in a musically receptive state, or at least receptive to a certain mood of music, is an important factor in determining whether the music sounds good or not. So what is something you can do here? Well, maybe you want to pick music that fits your mood or possibly lifts your mood. Next, you can try and set the mood. How do you do that? Well, you can turn the lights off. And better yet, not only with the lights off, but close your eyes. Why is that? Well, you tend to focus more, not only on the music, but on the lyrics, and will appreciate what you're listening to more. Also, when the lights are off and your eyes are closed, other stimuli are diminished. And much like a stereo system, you are lowering the noise floor, and therefore you are bringing out more of the subtleties of music. In other words, all this can help you connect with your music and thus enjoy it more. A lot of people say this is just psychological, but others say there are some scientific reasons for this. So let's look into this. Well, at nighttime, there are two things happening. One is your brain is tired. And when your brain is tired, a lot of those outside stimuli, things that you are focusing on and concentrating and distracting you, are no longer there. For example, for many of you who are golfers out there, you know that your swing is many times affected just by your mood and what you are thinking about. So when you go out there and play golf and you're tired, and I know this has happened to me many times, you play better. Why? Your brain isn't focused on other things. Your brain is tired and relaxed, and when you're relaxed, you swing better and you play better. I think this is similar to listening to music at night when your brain is more relaxed and thus receptive to the music. Let's take a look at another thing that happens at nighttime, and that is that your electrical use in your community diminishes. So there are fewer appliances being used, you have less lights on, you have fewer computers that are being used, and things that you use such as cellular service, which is wireless service, also diminishes. So the radio frequency and electromagnetic interference will affect your audio system in a negative way. It will induce some buzzing or other humming noises, even though they may not be audible at the listening position, it's there and you're increasing your noise floor. And many of the high-end audio companies go to great lengths to do isolation to decrease the electromagnetic interference that can occur with their products. So to summarize, nighttime listening will cause less distraction to not only your brain for better listening, but also less interference with your stereo system. In other words, this immerses you deeper with the artistry and emotion of the music and allows you to connect with your music. Another factor people don't talk about much is loudness. If you listen at a very, very low level, a lot of those finer, subtle points of the music, especially some of the low end, is missing. You can't hear it. You can't be affected and emotionally connected to the music. Now, if you're just having it on for some background sound, for relaxation, that's fine. But if you are actually wanting to involve yourself emotionally with the music, see what the artist is telling you, connecting with the album, enjoying the album, you need to have the music at a level loud enough to hear all the nuances that are there. It used to be a trick back in the day when you went to a stereo store that you would listen to two components, and usually what they would do is they would set up one of the components that was more expensive, slightly louder, maybe a decibel higher, and to your ear it would sound better, and therefore you would end up picking that component. But if you really want to listen truly to what a component sounds like and compare apples to apples, the loudness, the volume, the decibel level has to be the same for both products. The music industry used this loudness effect to cause you to purchase or to listen to certain types of music. There was what was called loudness wars, and what happened is they would record to the ceiling. There would be no gap there for any sort of a range in the music. In other words, when you listened, it was always at the highest volume, no matter where you set your dial. So you were constantly being bombarded with loudness, and therefore you tended, if you were on the radio or listening to the television or whatnot, usually you would gravitate to that music or that thing that is slightly louder. So it's being used against you in that regard. So you need to pay attention to the volume level you're listening to the music. I'm not saying turn it on super high. I'm saying make sure it's loud enough so that you can hear both the highs, the mids, and the lows to their fullest. So what can you do to enhance the chances of musical bliss? Now, I put the word chances in there specifically for a reason. Back in high school, I remember one of my classmates was complaining to the teacher that he studied extremely hard, harder than he's ever studied for one of his exams, and yet he barely got a B on the examination, and he was frustrated. The teacher answered and said, you know, studying really, really hard doesn't necessarily cause you to get an A on an exam, but it does increase your chances of getting that grade. And that's what I'm talking about here. Doing the following steps I'm going to suggest will increase the chances of you enjoying your music more. So let's get to it. First step, like I said, listen to music at nighttime. Listening at nighttime is the first thing we talked about. First, your brain is more relaxed because it's tired, and it can ignore outside stimuli and therefore allow you to enjoy the music more. Second, there is less radio frequency and electromagnetic interference at nighttime due to appliances, cell phones, computers, etc. not being used as much, therefore allowing your stereo system to sound better. And finally, another reason that nighttime can improve the sounds of your system and your musical enjoyment is that with the use of less electricity, less appliances, etc., what you are getting in your community is cleaner electricity, less hash, such as the appliances are causing, to get into your electrical grid, and therefore cleaner electricity means cleaner sound for your system. Next, close the lights, especially if you have dimmer switches. It will do two things. Number one, it helps set the mood. And number two, it decreases in the interference in your system. The other thing you can do is try to decrease in your system the electromagnetic and radio frequency interference even further by using a good power conditioner. Not only that, you can buy cabling, especially power cords, that have good insulation. And some of the higher end companies do a really great job with this, and it does make a difference. I can tell you that when I added a power conditioner to my system, the noise floor dropped, and especially the bass quality was much improved. And that in and of itself improved my system without having to buy a very, very pricey new component to upgrade. And finally, along those lines is purchasing an uninterruptible power supply. That is, having a power supply that relies on battery power, and therefore it is clean. The electricity, quote unquote, is actually your power by batteries and not being powered by dirty electricity. Therefore, the sound quality should be better. Now, I have not gone that far in my system. I'm not sure I'm ever going to do that. It is quite pricey, and at this point, I do not think spending that kind of money will enhance my enjoyment that much more. Next, remember listening to your music loud enough so that you can hear all the music that is present on whatever you're listening to. Now, one of the evils of the stereo system are cables, especially those that are very long in length, or if you have it set up and the cable is coiled. Those things can cause increased interference in your system and degrade the sound quality. So, buy the shortest distance cable that you need for your system, and make sure that you don't have cables that are coiled or crossing, especially power cables crossing with other audio cables such as your speaker cables. And finally, pick the music that fits your mood. You will be more receptive to this music. I hope this video helped you understand why music may sound different when you play it at different times. Also, I hope that my suggestions will help you reach musical bliss. As always, if you have any further suggestions that may improve your musical bliss, please let me know on the comment sections below. And now for last video's unknown album. The unknown album, I guess, was rather easy, or at least several of you told me so. And that's because I think ones that I gave before were a little bit too difficult. So if this one's too easy, all right, I'll make the next one a little bit harder. Anyway, the unknown album is by Steely Dan. It came out in 1974. It's on the ABC level, and it is the album Pretzel Logic. Now, this album is a little bit interesting in that, first of all, it was the third studio album, and it is the last album that Steely Dan would tour behind. After this, Steely Dan became exclusively a studio band only. The other interesting thing about the album is, first of all, if you look at the cover, the pretzel price was 15 cents back then. And today, I don't know, pretzels are $5+ I think, on the streets of New York City. So that was kind of cute to see 15 cents for one of those large hot pretzels. The next thing is, and I think one or two of you actually pointed this out, which is a good observation, is that the word pretzel is misspelled on the album cover. Now, this is something that I notice now more and more on television or in books and magazines, since my wife always points this to me out. She is a editor, and so words are very important to her. And I now kind of have my eyes tuned a little bit more to mistakes in spelling. And now for this video's unknown album. Great. Hope you got that one. As always, if you think you know the answer, please let me know in the comment sections below, and I'll let you know how you did. As always, this is Alex with All About Albums. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and remember, keep them spinning.